Welcome, everybody. Mary Jane and I are so happy that you're here for, let's say, for official purposes. For those of you listening online, um, I am Jan Jeremias, and for more than 35 years, I've been a health coach and have woven into my life over the past 2 decades the blend of my clinical research roots and a deep love for holistic wellness. And I then transitioned and in working with people and their pets along this same sort of avenue. Um, what really inspires me is helping others and helping them to see the whole picture of their well-being, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and helping them to translate that into a workable, simple, meaningful blueprint for everyday health. Just clarity, compassion, and practices that truly fit, um, everyday lives. I'm endlessly inspired by creativity and nourished by connection. So this community and others that I'm a part of, I'm, I'm filled with such gratitude for you all being here and for the community that Mary Jane and I continue and work to create. It's really wonderful to be in this space with her. And together we believe in bringing more kindness into the world, one creative moment, one conscious breath, and one heartfelt conversation at a time. So, heartfelt thank you to Mary Jane and to each of you for your presence here today. I'm like, my heart is full. Mary Jane, I'll pass it to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jan. You know the feelings are definitely mutual for sure. Um, yeah, as you say, for official purposes, it's for the recording. I am Mary J. McQueen, and I know all of you here know me and probably know what I do as well. However, just to share that I am I'll call it seasoned graphic designer, tenured, whatever you want to refer to it as. And the past 6 year, I've had the pleasure of being my own boss, shall we say, and with MJ McQueen Creative Studio, and of course alongside with Jan for the Spirit Board Imaginings. It's it's been a very big blessing in my life, and getting to know many of you as well. And so you're most welcome here. And as you know, the space is a place for intentional conversations, maybe a little bit of meditation, and definitely really a place of compassion and curiosity. And we just love that you come and join us here and bring your energy here to this space, because without you, we wouldn't be here. So we love that you're here, and welcome. And I will share the poem that I usually bring at the beginning. And it's just an invitation to listen inward, in a sense that of what wants to be present today. So it's called What Life Should Be, and it's by Pat A. Fleming. To learn while still a child what this life is meant to be, to know it goes beyond myself, it's so much more than me. To overcome the tragedies, to survive the hardest times, to face those moments filled with pain and still manage to be kind, to fight for those who can't themselves, to always share my light with those who wander in the dark, to love with all my might, to still stand up with courage, though standing on my own, to still get up and face each day, even when I feel alone, to try to understand the ones that no one cares to know and make them feel some value when the world has let them go, to be an anchor, strong and true, that person loyal to the end, to be a constant source of hope to my family and my friends, to live a life of decency, to share my heart and soul, to always say, I'm sorry, when I've harmed both friend and foe, to be proud of whom I've tried to be and this life I chose to live, to make the most of every day by giving all I have to give. To me, that's what this life should be. To me, that's what it's for, to take what God has given me and make it so much more, to live a life that matters, to be someone of great worth, to love and be loved in return, and make my mark on earth.
Thanks so much for sharing our poem for today, Mary Jane. Remarkable, remarkable words. So we welcome you today to experience, to embodiment, wisdom you feel. We welcome you into this space where we explore how life itself, your lived experience, becomes the bridge from knowledge to wisdom. Here you are invited to notice that wisdom is not something we simply read about or think through. It is something we feel, something forged in the living of our lives. We are natural storytellers, and the raw material we draw upon is our lived experience, the moments we've lived, both joyful and challenging, form the chapters of our life story. They don't just shape what we remember, they define the stories we use to explain who we are, our core beliefs, trust, safety, ability, and love are not abstract ideas. They are forged in the crucible of actual events, in the moments we faced, the choices we made, and the feelings we carried. In this conversation and exchange, there is no need to perform, to have it all figured out, or to arrive with polished insights. Instead, we gather to reflect, share, and witness the ways our experiences have shaped us, to honor how knowledge becomes embodied wisdom when we live it fully. We welcome you to pause, to listen, and to feel, to bring your story into this room, and to leave with a deeper sense of the wisdom that already lives within you.
I love that, Jan. I really love it's like, and it's really why we're here. And I guess I alluded to it a little bit when I was doing my little intro about is that to bring your story into the room and bring your energy here and hopefully leave with a sense of wisdom and that sense of that it lives within you and recognizing that wisdom in others as well, and how those little pearls of wisdom can just be solace to us as we go through our day-to-day lives.
Absolutely. And that wisdom is then, when we share our stories, we share that wisdom with others. And maybe in some way they identify with it, they connect to it. It touches their heart, it touches some part of themselves and their own story. And in those, and in that, to me, that's where we realize how connected we are. That we all share, maybe some of the details are very different, but that wisdom is very much the same in a lot of ways.
That's so true. It's like we spoke of before. I know is just that sometimes, not sometimes, most times, often um, we can hear something 100 times, and sometimes we just need to hear the story, the emotion, the feeling behind, the experience behind somebody else's experience, their story, in order for us to really take recognition for ourselves.
Absolutely. I think when others speak their story, share their stories, write their stories, whatever sort of way that resonates with you, I think people then feel, give themselves permission to actually see their own stories, maybe share their own stories, and to actually maybe examine their lives a little bit more deeply and find meaning where they could not find meaning.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, and it's funny how our perception often is, or probably because that's what 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 the outside world tells us is that wisdom is coming only from books, but we know from our heart space that that is not necessarily the case. That really, um, the things come from our lived experience. Um, they reside more deeply often because it's more embodied, and it's just that sense of knowingness in a sense. Um, I just love that, and that's why this space is so key. And I look forward to it each week. Is that because people bring such varied experiences and wisdom, but somehow there's a connection point for all of us, and so that's why I was saying in the chat that someone is waiting to hear your story, all of you, because it's connection.
Hmm. Yeah, I absolutely. And I think that the other thing, because we bring heart, and there's Al's heart, we bring heart to the situation. We bring heart into the space. And I think that, I mean, I hope it's obvious to everybody, but I'm assuming that you're here, so it is. But you know, and I think what changes knowledge into wisdom is that heart, is the feeling, is the sensation. Otherwise, it's just facts um, that we know, and I think it has to become lived to be able to turn itself into wisdom, to make that, to have it bridge between one and the other.
Yeah, that's really true, right? Because I mean, like I was saying, is that's like, as you know, um, it's the life experiences that really, as when we were doing our research, it's like one of the things they were saying is this, it's one of the most authentic forms of education. I think it's the truest form of education often, because it's when we're, you know, leaning into our heart. That's where the gift is.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I think that's probably the problem with education is, you know, it's too much time in a classroom or in limited space and not enough time to experience.
Absolutely. That's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, no, it is.
We're sensory beings, and so our best learning comes from lived experience, lived, you know, um, exposure to things. I mean, hopefully they're mostly good things, but sometimes we know they can be challenging things too. So it's it's definitely all part of what our authentic life experience is for sure.
Yeah, and I think that that is one of the problems with education is the fact that, we are so limited, or the school, at least in the US, the school system is so limited to classroom time and book knowledge, and there's very little time or space given to experiences.
Yeah, that's true. I know there's been some in Canada, there's been some things, and I'm probably sure there are too, but where there's some of the schools have done where there's a mixture of both book learning and sensory experience. So that's that's a big that would be a big step forward if more of those existed for sure.
No, absolutely. And I think that, we become so used to that, like fact-based learning or education.
Absolutely. I love the quote that you put in the chat, by the way. Being a walking, talking librarian certainly doesn't make you wise. That is true.
Absolutely. And if you, I mean, I think of some of the people I know who maybe, you know, technically like degree and school wise, you might assume that they are not very educated.
Mm.
Let's use that word, but they are probably some of the wisest people, you know, I've ever met and ever had, the pleasure of being around. So, because they're feeling, they're feeling individuals. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that people who have book knowledge don't feel. I'm just saying that I think you have to connect the two.
Yes. Well,
Yeah,
that's our
yeah,
lived experience, isn't it?
yes, very much so. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in that book world.
Well, that's your science background, right? So,
Yes, yes, I spent a lot of time there, and it was useful. It was interesting, and it is like, I mean, does, you know, kind of does light me up still,
it's okay. It's
but
but
but,
that's
but
your
that
lived experience too, right? You
that's
know the
right,
parts to grab
exactly.
onto.
That's right. You know how to merge both.
Yes. It's just, but yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, for us, it's like, you know, because we bring a lot of heart into the space, um, we experience often the world in different ways. And yes, it can be challenging when you're that person that leads with heart. But my goodness, is there great gifts in just being able to experience, excuse me, life in that way.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, it reminds me of like when you read something, how they really are like just facts in your head. You don't really have that experience at all. Um, it, you don't have that, like, it's like reading about a recipe versus tasting it. You know it on a level, but it's
Yes.
almost like a very surface level. And
Yes.
then, and it's about reading about a place and then actually visiting that place.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
then it becomes very sensory because there's nothing like the taste if you're eating a food, or if you're out in this piece of nature which you've read about, or let's say it's a country that you always long to visit, and then you actually stand on the ground and you feel the breeze and all those other things that come to mind or that come into you into feeling that place, the energy of that place. All of a sudden it becomes, you know, so much more. There's so much more um depth,
Yes.
richness to it. And the same thing is with people. I think when people share stories, there's so much more depth to that person. They're just not a series of facts or a series of labels. They become human beings.
Yes. Absolutely. And very, very relatable in the sense that, you know, you or not, depending on their experience, I suppose. But just being aware of, you know, a little bit of the foundation of where people are coming from. That's really makes a big difference, I find.
And I think probably one of the problems of our times is that we're very quick to label and categorize people. I don't know, maybe that's not, that hasn't, maybe it's always been like that or has changed or maybe more dramatic. But I think the sharing of stories and having in-depth conversations in spaces like this
Absolutely.
There's more connection and more realization of the similarities and how
Yes.
we all are basically navigating this world and doing the best we can.
Yes, with the knowledge we have at that given moment.
That's right. With the knowledge and wisdom we have at the given moment,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, it's true. Yeah, it was funny because you made me think about it was like about how labels people label other people or whatever. I think it's probably all been there since the beginning of time, to some degree. I think it's just in this instantaneous world that we live in now. It's in our face
Yeah.
constantly, shall we say?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I was thinking the same thing as I said it, as I think it's like always been here, but I think it's, in a way now we're so connected and everybody is so, and I mean, I'm here with all of you from all over the, from all over the country and all over the world. And that's a gift that I feel truly blessed,
Yeah.
one of the gifts of COVID, to me, because I was
Yes.
online, but definitely not with so many people that were, lived abroad before. And now all of a sudden I'm like, in this space with you all in different time zones, different time of day, different like, different climates, it's pretty amazing. But, and so we're all connected in this space. But I think in this instantaneous world, it's very much like, it's very obvious to us.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
oh, thank you, Al.
Yeah, yeah, it's very true. It's really funny, right? That I mean, our lived experience right now, and and I guess we'll call it the wisdom that comes from that is as connected as we are in this world, how so many more people can feel even more disconnected from each other. Um, just from the labels and stuff that people put on others and not actually leaning in with heart and taking in the wisdom from people's lived experiences and with a sense of the usual kindness, empathy, and compassion, and realizing often where people are coming from. We may not fully understand it, but boy, we can definitely understand feeling disconnected and you know, in that sense of longing for connection.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. And it is very interesting that even with all of this, that we have the opportunity to connect, we can feel so disconnected and so alone. And, you know, you have to like, I reflect on that a lot because I think in that way, my life, and some of it was this realization, over the past 6 months, I had somebody say to me, some really cool friends, all of a sudden I was like, I really do, it's like,
Yes.
I really have some really wonderful people, including you all that I'm surrounded with. And, you know, probably always have been, but all of a sudden it was that realization. And then, and I think I've said this, that I feel like every single person in this space, if they reached out to me about something, I would do my best to help them and take, as if
Yeah.
I could in some way. And I think it's really nice to know that and remember that about the world, because I think the world can feel very lonely
Yes.
and very much like we're in this by ourselves.
But isn't it beautiful to be able to come to the space and realize that we are not alone in this? And I don't know about you, but I'm looking at everybody that's joining us here today, going, "Wow, I have people I can visit all over the world."
The
And
world,
wow,
exactly.
I look forward to that day when I can actually be in those spaces in real time with in real time with the people here. It would be awesome. I would love to be able to
Yeah,
do that. We have to do a world tour. How's that?
that's right. That's right. Spirit Born Imaginings World Tour. I think it's a great
Yay!
idea. Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Let's
Um,
take our show on the road, Jan. Let's
that's
go.
right. That's right. I read this excerpt this morning by Mark Nepo, who I really like, from the book More Together Than Alone. And it just seemed to apply to what we just shared. It says in the Hindu Upanishads, which is an ancient Hindu text, yogic text, there's a passage that speaks to how those who become wise lose their names in the great oneness, the way rivers lose their names when they flow into the sea. In this transformation from the solitary to the communal, there's a mysterious physics that each generation has to relearn regarding what is possible when we can work together. Time and again, we're asked to discover through love and suffering that we are at heart the same. How do we come to this knowledge in our lives, in our families, and in our communities? What brings us together and what throws us apart? How do we inhabit what we have in common, as well as what makes us unique in ways that deepen our daily practice of service and compassion? My aim is to affirm that despite the hardships always present, we are more together than alone. From More Together Than Alone by Mark Nepo.
That's beautiful, Jan. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I mean, I read it this morning and I was like, wow. Um, yeah, I know. And you in Canada? Um,
Oh, that's right.
yes, yes, yeah, and then
Yes,
we'll have
I'm in.
Karen come on.
Come visit Toronto. I would love to have you.
That's right. And I would love to have you in New England.
Yeah, maybe you don't
You-
want to. Maybe those with warm weather right now don't
right,
particularly want to come right now, unless you're
right.
like really into like winter sports or something.
That's right. But even if you're into winter sports, like for a long time I snowshoed and stuff. Never was a cross country skier, but was a pretty avid snowshoer for a while and winter hiker. And wind chill over the weekend supposed to be minus 20 Fahrenheit. And not really, even though I used to run in that weather. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Taryn, please.
I'm just loving this conversation. It's so fun. You two are just so full of life. Love you both. So I was thinking about becoming wise, and no one ever starts anything new as an expert. So when you are starting out a new sport, maybe starting out paddle, but when I looked at the topic for today, I thought about my journey as an entrepreneur. Like starting out, you start doing anything and everything that you think you need in your business. You start doing courses, you do trainings, you look online to gain that knowledge. But really, it only is with time and experience that you become wise. So when I read the topic, I was like, thinking back on my journey, starting out, you don't really know much. You take what you have that you know, and then as you grow, meet new people, try new things, move from in person to online, meeting people online all over the world, like you were just saying earlier. I think that's one of the best ways to become wise is try. I think we're so fearful to try because we feel like we need to have a skill set. Okay, I am doing a degree. I'm in the process of doing a degree, but it supports everything that I'm doing practically. But I'm all for do a degree, study, do courses, start that business. You don't need to do courses and that to start whatever you want to do. If you want to do the sport, if you want to do pottery, you don't know how to do it, and that's okay. Start, and as you grow and learn, you become wise. So that just came to mind through the conversation, and when I read the topic, we become wise through experience, and that's life experience as well. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much, Taryn. And one of the things you said that I think that we must do, and is I think we need to reflect. Like we need to take a pause, like Mary Jane and I have talked about over the past like few months, like month, is that I think we need to like sit there and kind of, we do something and then we pause and we reflect. How did it work? What happened? How do we feel about this? Um, Because that's what makes it wisdom, is because when you pause, you have the opportunity to learn and to reflect and to realize or to acknowledge maybe what you might label, as mistakes, as opportunities instead, or just a way to refine. In yoga, we say we polish. Polish is a big word. Um, I've heard my teacher used to say that yoga was a practice of polishing your heart. So, it's a beautiful image in my mind of, that opportunity to reflect and to pause and to breathe. And then, that's what makes it wisdom,
Yeah,
in addition to what you're sharing, Taryn, that experience.
yeah, absolutely. And just to add on top of what you shared, it's an opportunity for growth and to do better after you do
Absolutely.
the reflection.
Absolutely. Because then you refine and you decide, oh, okay, I remember in yoga, I knew that I had gained some wisdom when all of a sudden, maybe what you want to do isn't what you should do. Um, I think that, when you practice, and I had a pretty, had been practicing a long time. I don't like to call it advanced, but I'd been practicing a long time. And I love to backbend. Like, I'm very flexible. I love to do drop backs, like, and stuff. And I would do them. And then, like, I got to a point where, like, every time I did them, then my back would go out like 3 days later. But I loved to do them. And I remember sitting in class and we're doing them, and I have to sit and watch. And I'm like, every like ounce of my being goes, I have a choice here. Seamus's word. I have a choice. I can either do them and have that moment of like sheer joy and then pay for it for the next 3 months, or I can be wise and sit there and say, okay, enjoy watching people, you're practicing in your mind, um, Matt Sanford does that because he's paraplegic and practices in his head a lot. Wonderful book, Awakening. And so, yeah, I had to sit there and say, okay, be wise and make a choice here that you're not going to pay for the next 3 months. And sometimes that's wisdom too, right? Is taking that information or taking your experience and saying, okay, well, I can choose to do that and that's fine. I just have to realize that there's a price to it. It's like eating bad food. If you doesn't agree with you, you kind of have to make a choice. You could be wise and say, okay, or maybe that wisdom is just knowing that you're going to pay for it and not like then berating yourself for the fact that you did it. It's just sitting there and saying, okay, I made that choice and that's the choice I made.
I love that. I love that, Jana. Where am I going to pay him for the next 3 months for? Yes,
Yes, yes.
it's funny how it sometimes it takes multiple times for that to actually sink in. I don't mean you specifically, but just in life in general. But I love what you're speaking to, though, right? Is it's like really about um, the lived experience, and then comes the next step of discernment and reflection, and then there's the wisdom that comes from all of that. So you just demonstrated a perfect example of that for sure.
And it was a very practical example because
Yes.
it's very hard, especially when you're in that group energy, like, and everybody else is doing it. And you're like, oh
Peer
gosh,
pressure.
yeah. And it wasn't peer pressure because I
I know,
really
I'm
loved,
just
I
joking.
really loved to do it. It was just like realizing that as much as I loved to do it, at that point, my body just couldn't do it anymore, or it wasn't the right time to do
Yeah.
it, you know, and having the wisdom to know that too, right? And sometimes like stepping back, you got to
Yes.
pause and step back. Al, please.
This week, very interesting, the topic embodiment. So I got a very, very long acronym for an embodiment.
Oh, wow.
so,
Okay.
so get ready for it. Yeah. Okay. So number one, the E stands for empowering. Noblemen, you're talking about people, all around the world. So all around us, all around surrounding us are all noblemen. So we are empowering noblemen and believing our dignity, integrity, manifesting enlightening, nurturing transcendence. So it's a very long, long, long acronym, you know. So it's so powerful that within ourselves we have to believe in the dignity and integrity among ourselves, you know. When we come to doing things and our daily lives, you know, when we are practicing, you know, within ourselves and also the people around us, you know, the neighbors, the friends, the relatives, families, and all that. And within ourselves also we are manifesting enlightening and nurturing transcendence, you know, because in that state of mind, then only you can go to the further higher self within us, you know. Like I like Austin's background, where the person is sitting there and with all the chakra and all the beautiful light, you know, surrounding him, all the rainbow colors and all that, you know. So it's so empowering and giving us the transcendence within ourselves, and also it projects outwards to all the people around us. So like what Simmons always says, I always like the word transcendence. So anyway, this is I'll put it in the chat, yeah, for the embodiment acronym. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. And I love that. I love the acronym for today because there are some great, great, great words um, that um, that you and I do also love Austin's background. I always love it.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, I mean, we have to keep. I just this is just a joke, Al. We have to come up with even longer words so that Al has to figure out acronyms to go.
We have to put him to work.
Sorry, I made a wrong one. You know, the N and the M. You know, I put nobleman. But the nobleman should be a. So I made a mistake. First time I made a mistake. Okay,
No
correct it.
problem. That's our lived experience, right? That's where we get our wisdom. If we if we were perfect all the time, what actually would we be learning? Just saying.
That's right. That's right. And there's opportunities to learn no matter where you are. You
That
know,
that's right. Like
you can be in the most beautiful setting and, or like, what you might consider like, no challenges. And it can be some of the most challenging times of your life. Um, you know, and then you can be in a really horrible place and, be in a great space. And in both, you can gain such wisdom,
absolutely.
you know, because I think in the quiet of being in that beautiful space or whatever, giving yourself that space, all of a sudden you look at things maybe that you didn't have time to look at before when you were too distracted. And there's a
Yes.
lot of wisdom in that because you have the opportunity to pause and reflect. And then there's opportunity when you're going through life's experiences. And then if you pause after that, even in the busyness. So in both, there's space.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely the that's definitely true. But it's it's just it's always wonderful to join here and just even if they're not verbally being shared here, just knowing the wealth of experience and embodiment and wisdom that's just in the space altogether. And that's not just to sit, just to be and say, "Oh, you guys are awesome," but you guys really are awesome. So we we definitely um, hope that you feel that sense in yourself as you go through the rest of your day or the day, whichever time frame you're in, that you really are amazing and indeed blessings to us here.
Absolutely. Because as you're saying that, thank you for sharing that, Mary Jane. Because as you're saying that, I'm thinking about the conversations I've had with everyone in this space and
Yes.
how I always walked away with some element of wisdom based on something that was shared and said, always.
Yes.
And even some laughter.
Well, the spaces we're in, Jan,
Yesterday,
there
I was
has to be some form of laughter. There, it is pretty much. It's pretty much a given
Yes,
because
it is. Yes, it is.
my lived experiences is that, and hopefully the wisdom that comes with it is that life and community filled with laughter is indeed a blessing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's always, that's when you know something's going really well, when you can, when
Have
you
a good
laugh a
laugh at
lot,
yourself.
when you have a good laugh at yourself and, you know, when there's a little bit of humor and a lot of like, you know, just kind of those little gentle kind of really the humor that comes out when you like have a good when you're in a good relationship with somebody and you can kind
Yes,
of like, where you say
exactly.
something and you kind of say something they like this the type of thing when you say, I'm not saying a word. Like they kind of walk into it and you're like, that you said to me this morning
Yes, I did.
before we
That's why I'm
got on,
laughing.
you were like, I'm not saying a word. Like there, and we both just cracked up, It was just like, okay, yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it's the word not spoken that speaks the loudest, right?
That's right. That's right. Like you don't need to say anything because they've then just, and you're like, okay. But also in that, there obviously there's an identification, like a connection there
Yeah.
where someone is directly relating or can definitely knows that experience. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay. So there's that connection there because they're like, oh, another human being.
Yes, exactly. It's just funny. I was just thinking because I realize I'm nodding, which nobody can see, but it's like it's that it's that thing, right, where you kind of have that little aha moment when you the sense of recognition of yourself and in someone else and their lived experience, and that sort of knowing nod where you go, mm-hmm, yep, I can relate.
Yeah, because we got on today and Mary Jane had asked me if I had sent her, and like yesterday, she messaged me, she said, did you send me that email? And I got on to check because in my busyness, I thought maybe I forgot to push send.
Well, that's
And
never happened to anybody here, I'm sure.
that's right. And you said that. You said, well, that's never happened to me. And I was like, like it was like, yeah, we all have had it happened. And in that kind of gentle giggle, there's connection and an opportunity to realize that connection, right? Because then it's also, do you take notice of it? Do you, bring it, like acknowledge it in some way? Or do you bypass it and move on to the next thing? Because those are, like you said,
Jump
those are
in there,
check.
John. I'm happy to put my hand up, John, but I'm loving the conversation. And I would just a couple of thoughts, if it's okay if I share.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Because it's a beautiful conversation because it touches on so much. And I was kind of thinking, early on in the conversation, you were talking about education and so on, and the idea of information and knowledge and wisdom, and the idea of information and knowledge maybe are shallow and wisdom is deep. And I think it goes back to just what you're speaking to there about identity and connection and, education. Sometimes maybe we don't have the wisdom in our early years maybe to value our true value. And we go on a path, maybe down the academic path, which isn't meant for us, but we're conditioned to kind of follow that path. And, there's great wisdom, I think, in, recognizing our own kind of, you've just mentioned it there as well, like the inner voice and the inner knowing that we all have access to, but somehow in this conditioning and comparison and the paths that we convince ourselves and others maybe convince us that we should follow, to an academic path maybe versus an apprenticeship path or a trade path or whatever, that is our natural inner design path, but we somehow lose connection with that. And I think there's great wisdom as early as you can in your life to be able to actually not lose that connection, but recognize what your true value is and have the courage to kind of follow that path that is coming from your inner wisdom, the depth of your inner knowing, basically. So I think that's another aspect of wisdom that I think we lose connection with through the conditioning and the comparisons and forcing to go down a path that is not really yours to follow. So yeah, thanks so much for this conversation. It's again a lovely conversation, guys.
Thank you so much, Seamus, for sharing, and appreciate you coming off, um, you know, joining in your transit today. And one of the things I was listening to something, a room that Melanie Richards was a part of the other day, and it was really wonderful. They were talking about intuition and listening to your intuition. And that's a lot of what, like, to me also, is I don't know that we listen to that inner voice enough. We sit there and we doubt it. And how do you listen to that voice? That intuitive knowing, you know, Mary Jane and I and Darlene were actually having this conversation because of an experience. And, it's kind of like, how do you, like, that voice that tells you whether something feels right or something doesn't feel right, and cultivating that voice. And years ago, I used to have a medical intuitive I used to go to a lot. And I remember I was having a lot of intuitions. I was having a lot of, I don't even know what you might want to call it. Um, I guess clairvoyance kind of experiences where I would get images of people and things like that. And I remember going to her and talking to her about it because they were obviously true because people were sharing after I shared with them what I had like seen or whatever. And I remember going to her afterwards and I'm like, okay, is there a training I can do on this? My academic brain is sitting there going, okay, can I do a degree in this? And her just saying to me, Jan, meditate. It's her only message. Like, that's all you need to do. Is just breathe and meditate, you know? And it was so funny because there I am in my academic head thinking, okay, I'll do another certification. I'll get another, accrediting in something or whatever. And I'm not saying there are programs, but it was really just like pause, breathe, and meditate. And, it made me laugh knowing who I was and the training that I had come from. And then also where I then now was, like, so my, you know, sort of my past that came with me, obviously, because it's a part of me, but also how I had transitioned and changed and sort of saw that within myself. Like I had the ability to see, oh my gosh, I'm using, it's because after she said it, it was one of the opportunities that I could laugh. I was like, of course, like all I have to do is sit and pause and breathe, and it happens because I'm quiet enough for it to come through, for me to hear. Because normally, to Seamus's point, we're trained because the people who are not in that space, I think people who are in the outside world, if you're in that space, you're much more your own person. You're much less, if you think about it, you're much less likely to be able to be controlled. And so, depending on, who you're surrounded with and what system, there is this ability to want to keep people in a cat like easily controllable.
If only it was that easy. Ha ha ha.
Right, 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 right. Exactly. Yes, that's true too. Absolutely.
Oh my goodness. I love that. And
Oh,
Austin.
Austin, yeah, please.
Something's coming to me about the old saying of don't judge a book by its cover, and it made me continue that to think, and don't judge your story by the pages or the words.
Mhm. Ooh, I love
Ooh.
that.
Write that down.
I know. I was going to say, please put that in the chat, Austin.
Yeah, that it's so true, right? It's the old adage, right? Don't judge a book by its cover. Yeah, because it's further to that, right? It's like really, it's like because you don't know what the story is that's unfolding beneath those covers. It could be something truly amazing.
And also, like, you don't get hung up on the words. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like, I think of the things that have happened in my life where there were no words.
Hmm.
I didn't have the words, but the feeling was there
Yes.
and the experience was there. But it was, that's when people ask me about yoga and how I teach. it's always very hard for me to articulate because I think the words don't do it justice.
That's right. It's
The-
more,
that-
it's felt more than,
that's right. It's felt. It's like, recently, I've been doing, with Seamus's guidance, a lot of heart math. And I think that something also that's, sometimes hard to articulate what happens, but it's like an experience that I can't describe necessarily. I feel it definitely. And it is an embodied feeling. It's a very sensory feeling, but it's not easy sometimes to find the words, or it takes time to find the words, right? It's like the right words that feel right, that have an energy all their own.
absolutely. Oh my goodness. What a, what a rich conversation today. I love these moments of what I call unexpected joy in realizing the beauty of our shared experience with all of you. So thank you.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. What a wonderful conversation. Should we move into our meditation, Mary Jane?
I
You
think
think?
it's a perfect opportunity right now, right? It's just as you were speaking to earlier, right? About sit, pause, and breathe. So here we go.
Okay. 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 So again, everybody, just sit for a moment. Welcome yourself into whatever space you're in fully, all of you exactly as you are. Take a moment to settle into your body. Feel the surface supporting you, the weight of your body grounding you into the present moment. Allow your shoulders to soften, your jaw to release, your hands to rest gently, your fingers to gently curl. Notice your breath. No need to change it. Simply observe its natural rhythm. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest. Maybe the subtle movement in your belly. With each inhale, invite a sense of presence. With each exhale, release tension, letting yourself arrive more fully in this moment. Bring to mind a moment from today or a recent experience that carries a feeling. It might be a light one, challenging, surprising, quietly significant. Allow it to rise without judgment or expectation. As this moment comes forward, notice what feeling is present. Where does it live in your body? Can you follow it softly, like noticing a wave moving across the surface of the water? Let your breath accompany it, inhaling gently into the area where you feel it most. Exhaling to soften and make space. Can you sit quietly for a few moments with the breath and this feeling? Does it shift? Does it settle? Does it pulse? What is it asking you to notice right now? Can you allow yourself to be with it fully without needing to change, fix, or explain it? Just to be with it. Maybe ask yourself, how does this feeling move through me? What sensations arise when I simply pay attention to it? What subtle rhythms or textures can I notice as I breathe into it? Feel the quality of the moment, its color, its weight, its presence. Let your breath carry a sense of curiosity, allowing each inhalation to soften and each exhalation to release. As you continue to breathe and be present with this feeling, reflect gently what naturally arises from this moment. Is there a sense of clarity, a quiet understanding, a shift in perspective, a deeper connection to yourself? How does that feeling connect to your story, to your experiences, to the beliefs that shape who you are? What insights emerge when I simply observe without needing answers or conclusions? Notice how your lived experience, the raw material of your life, begins to reveal its wisdom. Recognize that your core beliefs, trust, safety, ability, and love are forged not in abstract ideas, but in actual events, through moments lived and felt. Moments just like this. Take a few slow, gentle breaths and allow the awareness to settle into your body. How does it feel in your chest, your shoulders, your heart, your hands? Let your posture soften and open as you allow this understanding to root into your being. Can you feel the sensation of wisdom emerging from the experience itself? Quiet, gentle, alive. Notice how your body and breath and your awareness are all part of this unfolding, how your experience is being transformed into something you can feel rather than just think. And as we bring this meditation to a close, rest for a few moments in this space of quiet. Carry the awareness that your experiences, all the chapters of your life story, are forming your inner knowing, your embodied wisdom. Take a deep, nourishing breath. Feel it move through your body. Let the insight and calmness of this practice settle within you. And when you're ready, gently bring your attention back to the space around you. Open your eyes softly, carrying the wisdom of your experience with you into the rest of your day.
That was beautiful, Jan. Thank you for that space. And I know we're going to be wrapping up shortly, but is it all right if I share something else that I found that really speaks to our conversation today?
Sure.
It's called The Wisdom of Life, and it's by Dr. Ira Progroff. And it reads, "If I did not believe that the wisdom of life is greater than my own wisdom, I could not have survived. But having survived is more than a faith now, a knowledge. I know that great as my wisdom is, the wisdom of life is greater. And as I could not float upon water when I tried to, now I can float upon life without trying. And this is my wisdom and the wisdom of anyone, to know that I am not how to carry the weight of my existence, but the waters of life will carry it for me in their wisdom. That is the wisdom of life, from which comes all power, and the ultimate glory, and the greatness of my wisdom lies in letting life be wise.
Mhm. Thank you so much for sharing that, Mary Jane. Well, thank you all for joining us today. Really, my heart is so full. Please take a moment to connect with us during the week. We would love to hear from you. Maybe take a moment to visit the LinkedIn and Facebook groups if you have time. If you want to revisit this experience, feel free to, hop onto the YouTube channel and listen to the recording. And also, if it resonates with you, feel free to share it if you know anybody else who might benefit or who might really enjoy the conversation and meditation. We have our 4 Wednesday series, our 4-part series, beginning February 11th with Darlene. So that's very exciting. February 11th, it's 4 Wednesdays, 2 in February, and then we have a week break, and then we do a 2 in March. So the beginning of March. So that's going to be really great. Mary Jane and I have our next workshop. We had to change the date. So it's going to be March 14th, which is a Saturday. And we also finally created our package for the year of all 6 of our offerings. So look for information on that. Yeah, so many blessings to you all. Thank you all. I know I speak for Mary Jane, but she can speak for herself in a moment. I so appreciate each and every one of you, and your being here today. Lots of love and have a great week. And if you're getting as much snow as we are, happy snow. Now they're saying about a foot or more. So
Oh
yeah,
gosh. Here
I
we
know.
go.
Here we go. Yeah.
Thank you everyone for being here and for being part of this community. Thank you.